The Wembley Stadium was alive with electric energy on July 16, 1988, as 72,000 fans screamed in unison for the King of Pop. It was the second night of Michael Jackson's Bad World Tour in London, and the atmosphere was nothing short of magical. Among the sea of devoted fans pressed against the barriers was 17-year-old Emma Richardson, a working-class girl from Manchester who had saved every penny from her part-time job at a local cafe to afford this once-in-a-lifetime experience. Emma's journey to this moment had been one of pure determination. Growing up in a small council flat with her single mother, who worked double shifts as a cleaner to make ends meet, luxury experiences like concert tickets were simply not part of their reality. But Michael Jackson's music had been Emma's escape during the hardest times of her childhood, when her father left when she was 8, when they couldn't afford proper heating in winter, when she felt invisible and worthless in a world that seemed designed for people with more advantages than she had. For Emma, Michael Jackson represented possibility. His music spoke of transformation, of rising above circumstances, of finding magic in the midst of struggle. Songs like Man in the Mirror and The Way You Make Me Feel had become her personal anthems during the lonely teenage years when she felt like an outsider in her own life. The ticket to Michael's concert had cost Emma 3 months of wages from her weekend job. She had eaten nothing but toast and beans for weeks to save the money, telling her mother it was for school supplies. The guilt of the small deception weighed on her, but Emma knew this might be her only chance to see her idol perform live, and she was willing to make any sacrifice necessary. Emma had arrived at Wembley Stadium 6 hours before the concert began, determined to get as close to the stage as possible. She spent the entire day pressed against the metal barriers in the standing section, refusing to leave her spot even to use the bathroom or buy food. By the time Michael took the stage, Emma was dehydrated, exhausted, and running on pure adrenaline and excitement. The concert itself exceeded every expectation Emma had built up over months of anticipation. Michael's energy was magnetic, his dancing was otherworldly, and his connection with the audience was immediate and profound. During Billie Jean, when Michael did his famous moonwalk just 20 feet away from where Emma was standing, she felt tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming joy of witnessing artistic perfection in person. As the concert progressed through hits like Beat It, Smooth Criminal, and Thriller, Emma found herself swept up in an emotional experience unlike anything she had ever felt. The combination of the music she loved, the proximity to her idol, and the collective energy of 72,000 people singing along was almost overwhelming in its intensity. The pivotal moment came during The Way You Make Me Feel, when Michael Jackson began his traditional walk through the front sections of the audience. This was a signature element of his live performances. Michael would leave the stage and walk among his fans, making direct contact with people who had traveled from around the world to see him perform. Emma watched in disbelief as Michael approached her section of the barrier. Security guards flanked him on both sides, but Michael moved with complete confidence among his fans, touching hands, accepting gifts, and making eye contact with individuals in the crowd. The energy was electric, but there was also something tender and personal about how Michael connected with each person he encountered. When Michael Jackson was just 3 people away from Emma, she felt her heart racing so fast that she could barely breathe. She had dreamed of this moment countless times, but the reality of being within arm's reach of her idol was more intense than anything she could have imagined. The combination of extreme excitement, hours of standing without food or water, and the overwhelming emotional experience of the concert was pushing Emma's physical limits. Michael reached the fan directly next to Emma, a middle-aged woman who burst into tears when he touched her hand. Then he turned toward Emma, and their eyes met for what felt like an eternity but was probably only a few seconds. Michael smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had captivated millions of people around the world, and reached out his gloved hand toward Emma. The moment Michael Jackson's fingers touched Emma's hand, several things happened simultaneously. First, Emma felt an electric shock of connection that seemed to travel from her fingertips throughout her entire body. The reality that she was actually touching her idol, the person whose music had sustained her through the most difficult years of her life, was almost too much for her nervous system to process. Second, the crowd around Emma erupted in screams of excitement and jealousy, creating a wall of sound that was overwhelming even by concert standards. Third, and most significantly, Emma's body betrayed her completely. The combination of dehydration, exhaustion, extreme emotion, and the shock of physical contact with Michael Jackson caused her to lose consciousness entirely. Emma collapsed instantly, her hand slipping out of Michael's grasp as she crumpled toward the concrete floor of Wembley Stadium. The fans around her screamed in alarm, and security guards immediately moved to create space around Emma's unconscious form. For a moment, chaos threatened to overwhelm the carefully orchestrated concert experience. But what Michael Jackson did next would become one of the most talked about moments in concert history, and would demonstrate why he was beloved not just for his artistic talent, but for his genuine compassion and humanity. Instead of continuing with his planned walk through the audience, Michael immediately dropped to his knees beside Emma's unconscious body. He waved away the security guards who were trying to move him along and took charge of the situation with the calm authority of someone who genuinely cared about the well-being of every person who came to see him perform. "Get back, give her space to breathe," Michael commanded the crowd around him, his voice carrying the same intensity he brought to his performances. He removed his signature glove and gently placed his bare hand on Emma's forehead, checking for signs of fever or distress, while speaking to her in a soft, reassuring voice even though she couldn't hear him. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart," Michael said, his words picked up by nearby fans who would later recount them to media outlets around the world. "Just breathe, you're safe." Michael gestured for his personal doctor, who traveled with the tour specifically for situations like this, to come down from the VIP area immediately. While waiting for medical attention, Michael did something that stunned the 72,000 people watching. He sat down cross-legged on the concrete floor of Wembley Stadium, cradling Emma's head in his lap like she was a family member rather than a stranger. The entire stadium fell into hushed silence as people realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Michael Jackson, at the height of his global fame and in the middle of one of the most anticipated concerts of the year, had stopped everything to personally care for a fan who had fainted from excitement. Michael's doctor arrived within minutes and confirmed that Emma was experiencing a combination of dehydration and emotional overwhelm, but was not in any serious danger. As the medical team prepared to move Emma to receive proper treatment, she began to regain consciousness, her eyes fluttering open to find herself looking directly into the face of Michael Jackson. The moment Emma realized where she was and who was holding her, her eyes filled with tears. But instead of the excited screaming that might be expected, she whispered a single word: "Why?" Michael understood immediately what she was asking. Why had he stopped everything to help her? Why was someone as famous and important as him sitting on the ground with her head in his lap? Why did her well-being matter to him when he didn't even know her name? Michael's answer would be quoted in newspapers around the world the next day. "Because you matter. Every single person who comes to see me perform matters. You took the time to be here, you saved your money to be here, you believe in the music we make together. The least I can do is make sure you're okay." Then, Michael did something that would be remembered as one of the most generous gestures in entertainment history. He helped Emma to her feet, asked his security team to escort her to the VIP medical area where she could recover properly, and made an announcement to the entire stadium that created a moment of collective love and support. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said into his microphone, his voice carrying clearly throughout Wembley Stadium, "we just had a beautiful reminder that the energy we create together can be overwhelming. Let's take a moment to look out for each other and make sure everyone around us is okay." He paused, then continued with increasing emotion. "This young lady just taught all of us something important. She reminded me that music isn't just entertainment, it's connection, and real connection means caring about each other's well-being." What happened next was unprecedented in concert history. Michael led the entire stadium in a moment of collective care, asking people to check on the fans around them, share water with anyone who needed it, and create space for people who were feeling overwhelmed. Concert security and medical teams reported that this simple announcement led to dozens of fans receiving help they needed but had been too embarrassed or overwhelmed to ask for. While Emma received medical attention and recovered in the VIP area, Michael resumed his performance with an energy and emotion that seemed even more intense than before. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. At the end of the concert, as Michael was taking his final bows, he made an announcement that brought the entire stadium to tears. "There's a young lady named Emma who reminded me tonight why I do what I do. Emma, if you're feeling better, would you come back out here?" Emma, now fully recovered and accompanied by medical staff, was escorted back onto the stage where Michael was waiting with a microphone in his hand and genuine gratitude in his eyes. "Emma," Michael said, "I want to thank you for showing me something beautiful tonight. You showed me that when we care about each other, magic happens, and I want everyone here to remember that we're all connected by the music we love and the humanity we share." Then, Michael did something that would become legendary among his fans. He took off the fedora he had been wearing throughout the concert, one of his most iconic pieces of stage wear, placed it gently on Emma's head and said, "This is for you to remember that you are valued, you are loved, and you matter exactly as you are." The crowd's response was thunderous, but what happened next was even more meaningful. Emma, finding her voice and her confidence in front of